Joy. Hello. Just waiting a few minutes, see if people join. Happy Sunday. Hi, guys. Hi, Special K. Hello, 2 people who already disliked this video. You're starting to make it, Sarah. Did they really? I can't see that. You can see the dislikes? Hold on, let me see if I can find that. That's really funny. Hello, 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 hello. Good evening, you guys. Hold on, this is so funny. Can you really see that? I can't see. I thought the dislikes were hidden. That's so funny. Okay, what's up, you all? I'll wait just a minute, see if people come in. Screw them. No, I just think that's so funny. Oh, thank you. Who just sent that? Steven, thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. I'm excited for these topics tonight. It'll be really good. I hope it'll be good. That's objective. They don't appreciate you. Sad. No, that's okay. I see no dislikes and 5 likes. I can't see the dislikes. They're hidden from me. That's really funny. Okay, tonight will be fun. We're going to talk about Chris Cuomo. We'll talk a little bit more about Seth Rogen. They did something really funny. Are you headed for heaven here? Hi, Sarah. Hi. We'll talk a little bit about Seth Rogen. It's really funny. And how liberal policies are backfiring here in Los Angeles. There was recently... Oh, dislikes are still visible in some browsers. Oh, okay. I downloaded the Google Chrome extension that shows dislikes. I need that too because I want to see dislikes on certain videos. What's up? Yeah, I guess that is pretty flattering. I didn't even get started. Gary Smith, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, Chris Cuomo. We'll talk about Chris Cuomo. We now know why he got fired. Update, if you didn't know, Chris Cuomo did get fired from CNN. We found out yesterday. And now I have that additional information. So I know exactly why he got fired. Talking about Seth Rogen and Sarah Silverman and their Santa Inc. Christmas series that got really bad ratings, and then how liberal policies are backfiring here in LA, and they're actually walking back on a lot of things like zero cash bail. There was a press conference the other day with the chief of the LAPD and Garcetti, so that was really interesting. And basically the theme around this whole live stream is how all of these super liberal things are backfiring. People are starting to be held accountable, and people are starting to wake up. And before we get into all of that, I have, since this is the subject we're on, let's just talk about Seth Rogen first, and then we'll get into Chris Cuomo, because Chris Cuomo is going to be long. And I also have reason to believe that CNN will be changing its ways, possibly. So we'll get into all of that. First of all, if you have a drink, I'm having a beer tonight. It's Sunday in the PM, so I'm drinking Sierra Nevada, and I'm drinking out of a can. I usually drink out of a glass. I usually pour it in a glass, but I'm in the South, so why not just drink it out of a can? Everything woke goes to shit, somebody said. Yes, it does. IPA as always. You know what? I don't love a lot of IPAs, but I like the celebration. And Sierra Nevada and Sam Adams are 2 beers that always, or are 2, what do you call them? Companies? Breweries? Yeah, breweries, but I think of them more as, like, I don't know. They're 2 breweries that typically have really good seasonal beers. So I like the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And Seth Rogen, if you don't like my crappy show, I don't know where that went. Island Girl, rum, Sprite, and pineapple juice. That's what Charlie Brown said. Okay, so first let's talk about this Seth Rogen thing really fast, because they said something really interesting. We already talked about it. God bless the South. I love it here. I do too. People are really polite. Men are gentlemen. People are so nice and talkative. I'm used to living in LA, and I will tell you there's a few times where I've been out and people just come up and start talking to you and have conversations with you. In LA, that doesn't happen. I walked into a Target one day and this woman came up to me and started talking to me. And when she came up to me, I was like, get away from me, you stranger, stranger danger. And she was like, oh, I just wanted to tell you that they're out of carts. They were out of the little carts that you go shopping in. That's just how kind people are. But I'm so used to no one's really that polite in Los Angeles. So I immediately went on the defense. I'm like, okay, calm down. You're not in Los Angeles anymore. Okay, so there was a little promo. Okay, anyway, if you don't know about it, the South is definitely a place to be. Yes, and cheers, by the way. So we talked about this Christmas series that Seth Rogen and Sarah Silverman put out on HBO Max. It's an animated Christmas series, and it has a lot of woke ideology in it. It's a feminist story. So Sarah Silverman wants to be the first female Santa Claus, but she can't because Santa has always been a white male. So she's trying to take down the patriarchy in this animated series. They also talk about the unvaccinated people, and the whole thing is just, it's super woke, super cringy. Well, it got terrible ratings, so it got totally ratioed. Fredo is in the stream. It got totally ratioed. On YouTube alone, it had, I think, 3,000 likes to over 100,000 dislikes. It had one of the worst Rotten Tomatoes ratings that I've ever seen. It was a 3% audience approval rating. And apparently on IMDb, it has one of the worst ratings in history. I watched the trailer to it and it was just awful. It wasn't funny. Not only was it just like really cheap, raunchy jokes, it was also preachy at the same time. So it got totally ratioed because of that. And Seth Rogen's reasoning for this was because there were so many white supremacists that just didn't want his film to succeed. I got a really funny comment and I really wanted to read it, but now I can't find it. Oh shoot, this is a shame. But anyway, I saw a little promo video that they made for it. And even in the promo video, at one point, I wrote it down. So it's just like a 30-second promo video. In the promo video, it's Seth Rogen and Sarah Silverman. Raunchy, preachy. Yeah, it's raunchy and preachy at the same time. Even in the promo video, darn, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to find. But even in the promo video, it's Sarah Silverman and Seth Rogen, and they're decorating a Christmas tree, and they're promoting this Christmas series. And Seth looks at the camera and he goes, "It's an R-rated animated Christmas special with a touch of a feminist agenda." And I was like, well, there's problem number 2 right there. And that just goes to show people are so tired of this. There's even Chris Gore from Film Courage. It's this incredible YouTube channel. It has tons of subscribers and they break down films. And he actually has a 2-hour video called "Please Hollywood Realize That's Not Going to Work," and it's called Dear Hollywood. And in it he says, and this guy is not right-leaning, he is not a Republican, this is a Hollywood movie buff, movie critic, and he even says, like, people do not want to get lectured in their films. And this is one of the reasons why films are so bad right now, is because they're trying to inject all of their virtue signaling and their lecturing into these films. There were studies done even by people on the left that even in sports, they don't want to see social justice. They just want to forget. They want it to be left alone. And it's like, we've always known that celebrities are out of touch. And we've always kind of been okay with that. We're like, we get it. You're out of touch. You know, you don't live like the rest of us live, but we'll give you a pass. You make us laugh. You entertain us. So we'll give you a bit of a pass. And then they started lecturing us at awards shows and in their films and their movies. And we're like, okay, bye. That's too much. Know your place. You know, if you want to talk about things on your off time, maybe your social media or this and that, okay, cool. But now you're starting to inject it in the entertainment and your award shows. So we're just tired of it. We're done. So there's that. I'm really upset because somebody left a really, really funny comment that is worth reading to you. Let me see if I can find it on my Seth Rogen video. Shoot. I can't find it. It's not here. Hold on one second. It was pretty good. Okay, I'm sorry I'm wasting your time. One more second. I'm going to try to find it if I can read it to you. It's really worth reading. Oh, because I responded to it. Anyway, if I can find it for the next time. But it was basically saying, okay, I remember. The comment basically said, no, it's not bigoted. It's just offensive if you're a misogynist or if you're white or all of that. It was a pretty funny comment. Anyway, let's move on. But speaking of Sarah Silverman, yeah, people don't like the culture Marxist propaganda, or in other words, woke propaganda. Nobody likes it. And I made a short video the other day of a comment that comedian Bill Burr once said recently. And he said that, you know, it's really only 15%. He was like, in my estimation, it's only about 15% of people that, like, on the far right and the far left that are this crazy. And really 85% of us are pretty normal. And we just want everyone to calm down. And I really think that's true. It's just that 15% is so obnoxious and so loud. And a lot of them are in Hollywood, I think. But speaking of Sarah Silverman, and right before we get into Chris Cuomo, I actually had to give her a little bit of props for something she said recently. And I know we're kind of poking fun at the film that her and Seth, or the series that her and Seth made together, but I do have to point this out, and this goes into the entire theme of this live stream about how the fake media and all of it is backfiring. And so we just did film, so let's do the fake news media right now. So we'll leave film alone. Let's go right into fake news. And Sarah Silverman actually called out Joy Reid. That's how bad it is. I actually agree with Sarah Silverman on this subject. She called out Joy Reid on Twitter for this. So I don't know if you heard, but Ron DeSantis is making a civilian military force in Florida. And I'll tell you exactly what it is, because it's actually quite a good idea and it's quite innocent. It's not what it sounds like on its face. But Joy Reid saw this headline that said, DeSantis proposes a new civilian military force in Florida. And so Jill Reid took this article, retweeted it, and said, so y'all know this is some fascisty bananas, right? Okay, so Sarah Silverman tweeted at her and said, please read the article before you post this stuff. You're a news outlet. The truth has to matter. So even Sarah Silverman, someone who is a very virtue signally leftist, clearly by the series she just made with Seth Rogen, is calling out Joy Reid for perpetuating propaganda and not actually reading the article. That is how bad it is. Joy Reid is so bad, she's making me defend Sarah Silverman. But let me just tell you what this is and why Sarah said this. So yeah, Ron DeSantis is the man, but let me tell you what this force is. First of all, if Florida implements this civilian force, it'll be the 23rd state to implement this. And basically what it is, it's not a military thing like it sounds like. It's basically about 200 volunteers which will aid, so they'll help to back up the National Guard in the state of a hurricane, a natural disaster, or a state of emergency. So Ron DeSantis is spending about $3.5 million on this pure voluntary sort of militia group, and they are just going to be a backup for the National Guard in case of an emergency, which if you remember Katrina, this is probably a really good idea. And so they're going to spend this money to train and to equip people to be able to be backup if they ever have a state of emergency. And Florida being a state that gets hit pretty hard by hurricanes, this is a really good idea. And like I said, 22 other states are already doing it. But that just goes to show how Joy Reid did not read this article at all. She just saw the headline, reposted it, put some propaganda on top of it, and then even Sarah Silverman had to call her out. State guards in red states should be significantly increased in size, significantly, yeah. And especially when you have, issues like what's going on in the southern border, that would help out a lot, I'm sure, with their National Guard on the southern border. And I also believe that Ron DeSantis has actually sent some of Florida's National Guard to either Texas or Arizona, one of those states, to help with their border crisis. By the way, just a quick update while we're on the subject on the border situation. I saw that they had Marines on the Rio Grande in Texas, helping to deter migrants from coming across the Rio Grande. So that's pretty good. Okay, now let's talk about Joyless Reid. Yeah, when Sarah Silverman is calling out the fake news, and even, I don't know if you remember, but Deborah Messing also called out the fake news, and she is another one of those kind of annoying, like virtue signaling leftist. Let the soul flow. Hi, Gary. She's Deborah Messing is another one of those kind of annoying virtue signally leftist celebrities. And remember, she called out the news too for really playing down the Waukesha. I keep saying that wrong. Waukesha? It's not Waukesha. Waukesha. I keep saying that wrong and I apologize. But she called out the biased coverage in that whole incident where they were downplaying the fact that a person drove a car and plowed it into these people. And she even called out the fake news. And she said, can we stop skirting around this? Call it what it is. We all know what it is. So when you have someone like Deborah Messing and Sarah Silverman calling you out, you know it's bad. Speaking of fake news, let's talk about Chris Cuomo for a few minutes. Last we left off when we live streamed together, Chris Cuomo was on suspension indefinitely for sort of helping his brother investigate the girls who were alleging harassment allegations against his brother. So when the Attorney General of New York was investigating the Andrew Cuomo allegations, she found that, yes, so long, Fredo. Yes, so she found that Chris Cuomo was in fact helping his brother and giving him information and using his position as a journalist to sort of investigate and look at these girls and get information on them. So all this came to light. They indefinitely suspended Chris Cuomo, and then all of a sudden Saturday, CNN released a press release that was basically saying, due to additional information, we have terminated Chris Cuomo. And at the time, I think the last we left off, or though I made a short video about it, we didn't know what that additional information is, and now we do. So Wednesday, an attorney contacted CNN and said, I am representing a client who has sexual misconduct allegations against Chris Cuomo. And the reason she is coming out now is because she was really tired of his hypocritical response to his brother, and she was quite disgusted in this. And I will read these exact words. Give me just a second. New details emerge. Okay, so Deborah S. Katz, a left-wing attorney, said in a statement on Sunday that she is representing a client who claims that Chris Cuomo engaged in serious sexual misconduct against her at another network. Katz said she notified CNN of the allegations on Wednesday and that the allegations are ultimately what led Chris Cuomo to being fired. And this is what Katz, the attorney, said in a statement. She said, in the wake of public harassment allegations against Governor Andrew Cuomo, Chris Cuomo looked directly into the camera and told viewers of Cuomo Primetime, I have always cared very deeply about these issues. Profoundly so. I have just wanted to tell you that. Subsequently, the Attorney General released a jaw-dropping documentary evidence demonstrating that Chris Cuomo played an active role in attempting to smear women whom the Attorney General concluded made serious allegations of sexual harassment and misconduct against the governor. Hearing the hypocrisy of Chris Cuomo's on-air words and disgusted by his efforts to try to discredit these women, my client retained counsel to report his serious misconduct against her to CNN. Wednesday, December 1st, 2021, I contacted CNN. Okay, so that is the additional information that caused Chris Cuomo to get fired from CNN. And Chris Cuomo did say in a statement, what did he say? He did say he didn't want his time at CNN to end this way, and he thanked his staff for the great work they did on the number one show on CNN at the number one spot, which, by the way, being the number one show on CNN is like being the skinniest kid at fat camp. I stole that joke from Fox News, but it's true because CNN gets the lowest ratings out of everyone. So having the number one spot there is not actually saying a whole lot, but he does have the primetime spot. But what's really funny is even Brian Stelter, who originally said, I don't think Chris is going to get fired. I think he'll be back in a few months. Brian Stelter came out on his show, it was either tonight or last night, and basically said, yeah, this is because of these misconduct allegations, and basically threw Chris Cuomo under the bus. So now people are calling Brian Stelter the traitor tater. CNN censorship, nothing news. Yeah, but what blows my mind is that, first of all, in my opinion, I think they might have been looking for an out for Chris Cuomo because, like I said, he has that primetime spot. And what's crazy is this is what it took to get him fired. I think he should have been let go a long time ago. There's been so many terrible things on his show. For instance, while we were in the middle of the pandemic, in my opinion, the biggest scandal was his brother, and it wasn't the harassment allegations, it was the nursing home scandal. And that should have been the journalism that he was doing. He should have been investigating what's going on with these nursing homes, all of this. No, not only did he not do that, he had Andrew Cuomo on his show, and it was like the Cuomo bro comedy hour, and it was just cringy and awful to watch. And everyone had to suffer through that. So he didn't investigate what was going on. So that in and of itself is a huge conflict of interest. Also, on top of that, here, I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to read you some reactions to his firing. So Jason Rance on Twitter said, Jeffrey Toobin still has a job, but not Chris Cuomo. So it begins the question, what in the world did CNN find during their investigation? Well, they found the misconduct allegations, but in my opinion, they were looking for reasons to let him go. There are people within CNN that have said that he was very disliked in CNN. There's a lot of people that didn't like him, and he was just a toxic individual. He even had on his show that one day, he was talking about the riots, and then he said, where does it say that protests are supposed to be peaceful? It says that in the First Amendment, actually. And it's the rule of law, actually. And then he also had Kyle Rittenhouse's lawyer on his show, and he was saying, okay, so he was getting chased, so they were just going to rough him up a little bit. What's the big deal? Just a total hack. Okay, and this is the point that I was just making. Someone said, Caleb Hull said, Chris Cuomo should have been fired a long time ago when he tested positive for the virus, left his house anyway, got into a fight with a cyclist, and then making a spectacle of him leaving quarantine for the first time when we all knew the truth. Do you remember that? How they wonder why nobody trusts the media. Everyone knew that he got busted being out of quarantine when he was supposed to be locked away in his basement. And he did. He got in a fight with a cyclist. And then the next week, he went back in the basement, never addressed it on his show, and then did his big reveal where he saw his family out of quarantine for the first time, when we all know that he was on an outing with his family outside of quarantine a few days earlier. And nobody ever addressed that. It just went away. I remember I'm watching that. I'm like, am I crazy? Am I crazy? What is going on? But this is why. But here's an update with CNN. What is going to happen with CNN? What is going to happen with his time slot? I do not know, but I do know this. I do know that CNN, since the beginning of this year, has lost almost 80% of their viewers. That's almost 8 out of every 10 viewers they have lost. You broke my heart, Fredo. And also, this is really interesting, and I just learned this today. So Discovery basically bought CNN. And the biggest shareholder in this purchase, this is a huge purchase, the biggest shareholder in this purchase, his name is John Malone, and he recently did an interview with MSNBC, and this is what he said. They were asking, what do you think the future of CNN is going to be? Are you going to keep them? Are you going to get rid of them? And he said, if I were to get rid of them, that would be a cowardly move. He did say this. First of all, he praised Fox News, and if you know anything, well, we've talked about this before. Fox News basically dominates the charts. Fox News holds 14 out of the 15 top cable news network shows. And they basically just triple CNN and all their viewership with all their shows. And John Malone said this. He said, I would like to see CNN evolve back to the kind of journalism that it started with and actually have journalists, which would be unique and refreshing. He said, I do believe good journalism could have a role in the future portfolio that Discovery Time Warner is going to represent. So he is a big fan of honest and objective journalism, and he wants to see CNN get back to telling the truth. And I think that's a great direction. Will that happen? We don't know, but this is the biggest shareholder in this acquisition of CNN by Discovery. So it'll be really interesting to see if anything happens or to see if anything changes with that. Georgia Guidestones are worth looking into. Been there since. I've heard of the Georgia Guidestones. I'm from Georgia and I've never been there. You didn't see that, but I just spilled on my shirt. Or did you see that? Okay, so here's a few other reactions about Chris Cuomo leaving, and then we'll move on. Someone said, toodaloo, Fredo. Adrian Lawrence said, translation, we terminated Chris Cuomo for a cause after finding out about more misconduct and what she's engaged in, which you'll likely find. Okay, whatever, that was boring. Sorry. Where do I place my $5 bet that this is ultimately not about Chris Cuomo helping his brother? The rumor right now is Chris had his own allegations. I'll buy that. If it's something else, not buying it because he helped Andrew. My other bet is we're going to start hearing stories. Oh, this is possibly true. They said, my other bet is that we're going to start hearing stories about the abusive behavior from Chris Cuomo, a la his brother, and everyone will be like, oh yeah, everyone knew that. I don't know. It could be that. There was this really funny Babylon Bee headline that said the unemployment rate among the Cuomo brothers has risen to 100%. And I think about that too. You know, Chris Cuomo got really rich off of his job. I'm sure he has a lot of beautiful homes. He's been able to go on a lot of beautiful vacations. But this is now the legacy of the Cuomo brothers. And I believe that Andrew Cuomo wanted to eventually run for president. Roaming hand Cuomo. My favorite so far was Brian Stelter, Traitor Tater. I can't believe, I cannot believe that they lost 80% of their viewers. I knew it was really bad, but I did not know that it was that bad. And keep in mind, Jeffrey Toobin still has a job there. And you know what's really sad? Traitor Tater. What's really sad too, someone on Fox News actually brought this up, and I think this is a decent point. You know, there's a lot of people that, I mean, this is just how narcissistic these guys are. They don't care about the integrity in their jobs at all. And think about, Tucker Carlson predicted that. Remember the video of Fredo and Cohen? I think so. You know, there's a lot of people that I'm sure are really good people that were working their dream job and working on Chris's show that now maybe don't have a job anymore. And they honestly did think that they were probably doing something good. But I did hear that a lot of people did not like Chris Cuomo there, and I don't know if it's like higher up, if it's executive level that didn't like him, or it's kind of like the smaller people that didn't like him. But I guarantee you we're going to, I totally agree with that. I guarantee you we're going to start hearing stories about Chris Cuomo and how awful he was to work with, and I can totally see that. But toodaloo, that's your legacy. A lot of people, I wanted to say this too, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Como is no mo. Cuomo wouldn't hesitate to destroy your life with a lie. I hope this hurts. It has to hurt because both of those brothers thrived on ego. And to have your legacy tainted, or to have your reputation tainted, has to hurt like hell for them because they are all about ego. I love Mark Dice's impersonation of Brian Stelter. I've never seen that. Yep, so that is what we know. Oh, okay, here's what, lock him in a room with Eva, the tabby tyrant. She is a tyrant. She made me bleed. Do you see that? That's what she did the other day when I was live. She's something else. First of all, I don't mean to make fun of someone's appearance, but whenever I see a picture of Brian Stelter, he's always like, they were both arrogant. Yeah, they're both very arrogant, very ego-driven, so I think this hurts the ego more than anything. I think they kind of have the attitude, oh, I can bounce back, but the fact that their egos are hurt, I think that's where it really gets you. CNN Stelter dunks on fired Chris Cuomo caused so many headaches, and staffers were very unhappy. So that's what Brian Stelter said. And I think this is such a big deal because I've told you guys before, and this is why I'm glad that somebody has acquired CNN, and maybe this will mean change, maybe it won't, I don't know. But I've told you this before. Everyone knows that about them losing their viewer, about them losing 80% of their viewership. I watch a lot of like super left leaning content creators because I follow, like, I like their pop culture news or whatever. And even they all know that CNN is fake. Like, even they say fake news CNN. Like, everybody across the board knows that CNN is fake news. And I honestly think the remainder of their viewers are just people that like to hear their own stuff just echoed back at them. I honestly think that's all it is. But even Brian Stelter was calling him out, and he said, I think this may be a situation, Jim, just drawing on my years as a media reporter, I think this may be a situation where it was death by 1,000 cuts. And this is Stelter talking about Chris Cuomo. He says, I think this may be a situation where it was death by 1,000 cuts, where there were just so many headaches time and time again involving Chris Cuomo that even though many viewers loved watching Cuomo primetime and looked forward to his show, that he was causing so many headaches for this network and for CNN staffers that ultimately this decision was reached. That's just drawing on my background, covering other stories like this. I do think, this is a moment where journalistic ethics are at play. And I know there were many CNN staffers very unhappy with the situation, very frustrated by Chris Cuomo. So that is Brian Stelter. That's what he said. That's why they're calling him Trader Tater. But yeah, so apparently a lot of people at CNN just were not happy with him. And I do believe that he caused a lot of headaches. The whole Fredo situation, what an embarrassment. The quarantine situation, which they were kind of able to sort of slide by. I still don't know how they did that, but they slid by that. His brother, he will do a podcast like Keith Olbermann. He probably will, and I am sure that he will get people to listen to it. I don't doubt that one bit. Like I said, I think that a lot of the people that still listen to or that watch CNN are the type of people that just like their own things echoed back at them. I really think that's what it is, because you have to be living under a rock to think that anything they say is, it's just like Timcast and a few other people were saying, we're going to just start calling them content creators. They're not journalists, they're content creators. They just create content. But he probably will. I get he's probably going to lay low for a little while and then maybe come out with a podcast, and he'll have people that listen to it, I'm sure. It'll do okay. Maybe he'll talk about how I was wronged at CNN, how I was wrongfully accused. There was a girl that came out, and this was back in, when was this? This was back in September, and this is probably what Brian Stelter was also talking about. I took that content creator from trying to spread it far and wide. So this was back in September, and I do believe this is one of the headaches that Brian Stelter was speaking about. So Shelley Ross, a former executive producer of Cuomo's primetime live show, wrote in an op-ed last week that CNN anchor groped her back in 2005. Chris Cuomo responded to the op-ed by noting that he had apologized to her back in. He said, our interaction was not sexual in nature, and added, I apologized to her then and I meant it. But Ross is now saying that the response proves Cuomo has not changed. She denied that there is anything that was our interaction, as she did not participate. She said, I was groped. She continued to say his response shows a lack of enlightenment. The CNN anchor has previously come under fire for reportedly helping his brother, Governor Andrew Cuomo, during his harassment scandal. Meanwhile, Chris Cuomo was seen in public on Sunday driving through the Hamptons in his vintage Pontiac Firebird. So this came out in September, and I will say I'm not a total fan. So apparently what happened is they were at a party together. I don't know if it was like a company Christmas party or just like a company get together, but they were at a party and she was there, I think, with her husband or her boyfriend, and Chris Cuomo apparently like groped her a little bit. What exactly did he do? I was at a party with my husband who sat behind me on an ottoman sipping his Diet Coke, and I spoke to work friends. When Mr. Cuomo entered the Upper West Side bar, he walked toward me and greeted me with a strong bear hug by lowering one of his hands to firmly grab and squeeze the cheek of my buttock. Buttock is such a weird word. So that's what he did. And then, yeah, I'm not always a fan of people. The email did, Rosa said she received an email from Cuomo 1 hour later saying he was ashamed of his behavior. Oh, okay. Ross said she pushed Cuomo away from her, with her husband witnessing what had happened. No, you can't, I said, pushing him off me at the chest while stepping back, revealing my husband, who had seen the entire episode at close range. We quickly left, she wrote. Ross said she received an email from Cuomo 1 hour later telling her that she was ashamed of his behavior, that he was ashamed of his behavior. The email dated June 1st, 2005, first apologized to Ross's very good and noble husband for having to witness his wife be patted as such, and apologized to her second. Okay, I actually take back what I said. All right, so it looks like the reason she came forward again was because he was on air while his brother was going through all of this stuff, and she felt like it was really hypocritical of him. She felt like he hadn't changed. And I just think these brothers are just a pair of... On a different note, did you hear about the cop who shot a knife-wielding person in a wheelchair 9 times in Tucson? No, I didn't. I saw a bit of a headline about that, but I didn't look into it as of yet. So, yeah, I think at the end of the day, these brothers are narcissistic. See the roaming hands, Cuomo, the hands of fate. Roaming hands, Cuomo. So there's that. Yeah, we'll see what happens with CNN. But that's why he got fired. Yay for that. Okay, speaking of, now let's go to liberal policies. This is really interesting, and it's starting to backfire a little bit. We'll see what's happening. So we've talked about this time and time again on this channel, how a lot of certain kind of crimes are just exploding in California. The smash and grabs, the robberies, the burglaries, and it seems to be happening. Don Lemon's next. Yeah, so Don Lemon has allegations against him as well. Anchor at all, by any means. I do not like him at all. Lance said, on a serious note, I do feel bad for Cuomo's wife and kids. This has to be zero fun for them. Oh yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. All of these individuals who have wives and kids, I just feel bad for them. Imagine that's your dad's legacy. And then especially the wife, that is your husband's legacy, and that's what people are going to recognize and know. That's what people are going to remember your husband as. That stinks. Okay, so Don Lemon. So he has allegations against him as well. Those are a bit odd. I don't know if you guys know about these allegations against Don Lemon. They've been out for a while. So this individual, he's a male, he's a bartender, and he went to a bar a while back where Don Lemon was at. So he walks in, sees Don Lemon, and I guess says hi to him, and Don Lemon is there with a bunch of his friends, says hi to Don Lemon, and then I did have that article up. I think I took it down. Says hi to Don Lemon and then says, hey man, can I buy you a drink? And buys 2 lemon shots without even Lemon saying, yeah, I want a drink. He just buys him 2 lemon drop shots. And then Lemon's like, hey man, I'm just trying to have a good time. And then goes back to his friends. And then so the alleger, the guy that's alleging that Don Lemon did something inappropriate with him, is saying that Lemon came up to him. This is really gross, but like put his hands down his own pants and then put his like hands in the guy's face, like touching his face. So that's the allegation that Don Lemon did, or Lemon or whatever, did this really inappropriate thing to this guy. And he went on TV. He even had an interview with Megyn Kelly about this, but there are just some odd things going on. It almost seems like he really didn't like Don, and I don't like Don Lemon. I'm not trying to defend him at all, believe me. But there's just something that doesn't really sit right about this whole thing. There are pictures of the accuser in Don Lemon's driveway, rolling around in his driveway, and then there's one picture of him with a lemon in Don Lemon's driveway, and it's up to his like crotch area, like they're making fun of him. What if someone did that to you? Why would you? I don't understand it. And apparently there were a lot of deleted social media posts from the person accusing Don Lemon that were really critical of it. So it almost, to me, I don't know, like obviously I wasn't there, but it almost seems like this person saw Don Lemon out and was kind of harassing him, and maybe it was a back and forth. I don't know. I'm sure they're both guilty. Who knows? But that whole thing is really weird. I don't think, it doesn't seem like it's on the same level or if you were to ask me my opinion, again, I don't know, but with the information we have, there's just something really odd about it. I don't know if any of you have read about it, but yes, Don Lemon does have allegations, but there's some other stuff going on there that doesn't really add up. It's very strange. Very strange. Not that I like Don Lemon at all, believe me. I can't stand him or his show, but I didn't know that much about it. Yeah, well, I read about it right before I started doing this live stream because I saw a comment that said, how does Don Lemon still have his job? And I was like, oh yeah, there were allegations against him. But then I saw the pictures and I read more into this story. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so someone said, agreed. If you harass someone, don't expect them to be like, yeah, that's what it seems. It seems like they're both, I don't know. There's just stuff that doesn't seem right about that whole story. And it doesn't seem like it's the same as these people coming forward against Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo. Again, not that I'm like, I never want to be Don Lemon's defender, but it just seems off. Talking about legacy, what else are people going to know about Jeffrey Tubin? Yeah, and you know what? I thought the same thing about his family. I believe he's married, am I correct? I felt the same thing about his family. I'm like, I feel sad if he has like daughters or children or grandchildren or a wife. Imagine, like, that is so disturbing. And that whole story is very icky and very disturbing. That whole story. And the more I read about that, the ickier it is too. Ugh. Ugh. And then imagine being a female staffer. I think I said this earlier, and being in the break room with Jeffrey Tubin and having to look at him. That's why earlier we were saying, like, I don't know if we weren't sure if Chris Cuomo was actually going to get fired, because we're like, okay, they let Jeffrey Tubin come back. How do we know they wouldn't let Cuomo come back? All right, so here's, I'll finish out with this, and then if you guys have any questions or anything, let me know. So, speaking of everything backfiring, let's now, Sarah, did you hear about the ratings for Cuomo's show spiked after he was suspended? Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to bring up. After Chris Cuomo was suspended, the first night his show went on, the ratings spiked. So, there you have it. And that had to not feel very well. And I guess that could be, it takes a lot for a lefty to get in trouble. Yeah, I guess that could be, it could be out of curiosity, you know, since all of this controversy was going on, people tuned in for pure just curiosity reasons, like who's going to host, are they going to talk about it, are they going to bring it up? So it could be that too. But that couldn't feel good for your ratings to spike the first night that you're off air. Okay, I want to just go to liberal policy really quick because a lot of the tide I think is about to turn in Los Angeles because of the recent smash and grabs, all the robberies, all the burglaries, and what happened with Jacqueline Avant. Jacqueline Avant was the wife of the just infamous music executive, and their Beverly Hills home was broken into, and she was fatally shot. The individual that they picked up and arrested that was responsible for this shooting was somebody that should have been in jail. He should not have been out. And this is a trend. This is starting to be a trend among a lot of liberal cities where a lot of people committing these crimes are people that should not have been on the streets. They have, you know, a criminal history that's like a novel. I don't know if you guys heard about this fatal stabbing that happened in New York to a Columbia University student, but it was the same exact thing. It was a criminal that had a rap sheet a mile long, and it was somebody that should not have been on the street. So this is happening across cities everywhere, and I think this, unfortunately, it's taking these tragedies to cause people to wake up. So a few days ago, the LAPD and Mayor Eric Garcetti, and keep in mind, Eric Garcetti is very liberal. He was out there with the Black Lives Matter marching, all about, you know, criminal justice reform. And now they are really waking up. So there is an hour-long press conference with what happened over there? There was an hour-long, thank you, Lance. There was an hour-long press conference with LAPD and Mayor Garcetti, and I just want to tell you what Garcetti said. So Garcetti said, first of all, they were talking about so in these smash and grabs, there were 14 people they arrested, over $400,000 worth of items stolen. They arrested 14 people, okay? Those people that they arrested for these smash and grabs that happened over Black Friday and that all recently happened just a few weeks ago, they said, or they all got arrested and they're already all back on the street because of zero cash bail. So all of those individuals responsible for these smash and grabs were arrested and they're already back on the streets, zero cash bail. Oh, I'll tell you what he said in just a second. I wanted to say that first. And what the chief of LAPD said was, he said, you know, it's really a small group of people that commit a majority of the crimes, and when we're arresting them and releasing them back on the street, they're continuing to commit these crimes. And then this is what Mayor Eric Garcetti said. So he says, there are people who need to be behind bars. How many times does the same person have to steal a car 3, 4, 5 times after being released before we realize? He said, much of this is coming from the judicial system itself, not the prosecutors. That's the one thing I don't agree with. But he is reiterating, he said, we have opened up a lot of the city because we're in a better place. With COVID, we should be able to also open up our jails, and we should be able to have judges put these people behind bars. So right before he said this, they were talking about the dangers of zero cash bail. So it looks like they're starting to come to their senses. And I even watched an interview on local Fox LA News where a prosecutor who works under George Gascon basically called out George Gascon. So they're realizing the implications of zero cash bail. And unfortunately, I think it took all of these smash and grabs. I think it took the tragic death of Jacqueline Avant to get people to wake up and to see how bad this is happening or how bad this is. But a lot of people are waking up to the reality of criminal justice reform. And while we're on this subject, I wanted to read you something because the dangers of how people are going about criminal justice reform are they're looking at incarceration rates and they're not looking at rates of violent crime. So I want to read you something really interesting if you don't mind. So I'm reading this is a really good book, but the same thing is happening today. We're looking at incarceration rates, but we're not looking at the rates of violent crime. So yes, incarceration has gone up. We are one of the most incarcerated countries. We have 5% of the population among the entire world, and we have 25% of incarcerated people among the entire world. But what people don't say is we're also one of the most violent countries in the whole world. And this goes back to 1994, but I just thought this was really interesting. So if you don't mind, I'm going to get really nerdy, and I highlighted it too. I wanted to read you something. So this book, I've been interested in why all of this crime is happening. And this book is called San Francisco, Why Progressives Ruin Cities, and it talks a lot about crime. So I don't know if you remember the crime bill in 1994, but this is what was happening. So it says, America's high incarceration rate of African Americans resulted. So the reason I'm reading you this, they use criminal justice reform as a guise for a lot of these policies. And what they'll say is they'll say that Black men are incarcerated at a higher rate than any other population. So that's the reasoning behind a lot of this criminal justice reform. So it says America's high incarceration rate among African Americans resulted large measure from concerns among Black Americans about rising crime and violence starting in the 1960s. By 1971, African Americans were 2/3 of all people arrested for homicide and robbery, despite being less than 10% of the population. In 1975, Black people were murdered at a rate nearly 7 times higher than white people. The Congressional Black Caucus worked with then Senator Joe Biden, President Bill Clinton, and Senator Bernie Sanders to pass the 1994 crime bill. How racist can a law be which the Congressional Black Caucus vigorously supported and even considered too weak? Asked Columbia University professor John McWhorter. If we had asked these Black Congress people in 1986 why they supported these laws, they would have said that they were aimed at breaking the horror of the crack culture, which had turned inner cities into war zones by the mid-1980s. So we look at incarceration rates, but we don't look at rates of violent crime. So for instance, in Los Angeles today, 90% of homicide victims are Black and Hispanic males. They also make up most of the prison population. So the criminal justice reform isn't looking at violence, isn't looking at why violence is happening, it's looking at just incarceration. So it's almost like the end. My personal opinion is they need to focus on preventing violent crime and not lowering incarceration rate, making violence go up in the very communities that they say that they want to help. And what's really sad, what really angers me, is that now all of a sudden Eric Garcetti, now all of a sudden LAPD, and all of these people are talking about how we can't have zero cash bail, how we can't keep letting people out. We need to hold people accountable, but because now it's coming to the affluent neighborhoods. It's in West Hollywood. It's at Nordstrom. It's in Beverly Hills. When this has been happening the entire time in lower income neighborhoods, but it took this for them to be able to talk about it. And I feel like I'm so frustrated because I feel like I've been screaming this from the mountaintops. I even spoke to a city council member in West Hollywood, and she kind of just brushed it off. Do you think fatherless homes plays a part in criminality? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I had a fatherless home also, and I had, I didn't live in a crime-ridden area, but I would have done a lot better in school if I had 2 parents in the home. You're still wearing that Georgia shirt. Ella, did they get beat by Alabama? It's almost like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, I was thinking about this earlier today. It reminds me of, because, I auditioned a lot in Hollywood. I still do a little bit. I just do it from home now. But it reminds me of this fake diversity push in Hollywood, this superficial diversity push in Hollywood, where they're trying to change their casting to make sure they fit certain quotas, you know? But the pool of actors that they're pulling from are the actors that are already in Hollywood, that already have agents, that are in acting classes. To be an actor in Hollywood, those are some of the most privileged people because it's expensive to live in LA. You have to move, it's expensive to move. Acting classes are expensive. Good headshots are super expensive. You know, being in that pool of actors, no matter what your racial background is, you're some of the most privileged kids in the US. And then they do this diversity push. And to me, that's fake because you're already pulling from the most privileged of the privileged. To me, if you really wanted to make it fair, if you really wanted to care, you would go put acting schools in South Central LA or in some of these low income area, put an acting school there, start a nonprofit, make an after school program, make the acting classes free or at very low cost, and then have talent scouts go to those acting classes and scout kids. I'm sure there's a lot of talent in those neighborhoods, but they don't get a fair chance. It's a quality of outcome. It's not a quality of opportunity. So that, in my opinion, is fake by Hollywood. It's this fake diversity push. It's not like they don't actually care. They just want to make it look like they care. That's why they have to spend so much time preaching. They want to make it look like they care, but they don't actually care. And by the way, South Central LA, some of these lower income areas are literally just a few miles away. It's so close. It would be so easy to put an acting school there. And like the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, they have money. You know, they care so much about diversity. You know, Oscar is so white, put an acting school there. That to me would be a bigger push than pulling from. I mean, I remember I went to UCB. I don't know if you guys ever heard about that. It's a big improvisational school. And UCB, it had this diversity program. So if you were like a woman or what they called a POC, or you had a disability, you could write an essay and then you would get free classes. Well, I remember in one of my classes, I had a few people that got the diversity scholarship. So they didn't have to pay for their improv classes. And two of them happened to be Black. And they were women because, you know, a lot of the guys in that acting school, they were like white men. So they were trying to diversify. So they made this diversity scholarship. But they came from yes, they were women who were Black, but they came from very affluent homes. They went to a 4-year university. They probably never worried about money a day in their life. And that's great. Like, I'm glad they had their scholarship. They were actually really nice. I was friends with them. But that just goes to show that when they're doing these diversity pushes, they're already pulling from some of the most privileged kids that have the ability to go, you know, move to LA and start auditioning and try to find an agent. And to me, one of the biggest separations in our country right now isn't necessarily a racial separation. I think it's a separation of class. I think there's a lot of classism going on. And I think it's some of our poorest people that are the ones that get the shaft the most and the ones that don't get a fair shot at opportunities. But that's just my opinion. I mean, there's kids in South Central LA that have never seen the ocean before. Anyway, that was my rant. Sorry about that. Every time I get on that subject about Hollywood, it just makes me crazy. Many men are being attacked because of me too. Yeah. I support equality of opportunity, not outcome. Yeah, absolutely. I do too, Daniel. I totally agree with you. Equality of opportunity. Let's level the playing field for people to have opportunities. Let's not level the outcome to make it look like we care. Because that's really all it is. It's just like, look, I care. Look, we love diversity. But really, you're not helping the people that actually probably need the help the most. Anyway. Did you notice BLM making its way into Grey's Anatomy? No, I didn't. What? Oh, geez. And that's another thing too. All my friends that posted all the black squares, are they talking about BLM now? No. Do they have any social justice things that they're like passionate about now? No. They only did it when it was like cool and trendy and when everyone else was doing it. That's it. Anyway, Grey's Anatomy, BLM. I did hear that Yellowstone, that's a show, right? I did hear that Yellowstone had an Antifa in it. I haven't looked that up yet. All my friends who posted black squares just did it to virtue signal. Yeah. All right, you all, I think that's everything I had for you today. Thank you for joining. That was a lot of fun. I really appreciated it. The black square thing happened on Taco Tuesday, and then I got in trouble for posting pictures of my catfish tacos. That was fun. Thanks for what you're doing. Thank you guys. Yeah, that was really fun. I'll probably see you tomorrow. I'll be live tomorrow at 11 a.m. I think. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you guys. That was fun. Thanks to the new channel. But I drink beer and learn yeah. Cool. Who doesn't like to drink beer and learn stuff? That's awesome. That should be, if I had a channel slogan, that should be the slogan. Let's drink beer and learn stuff. Cheers. We drink beer and learn stuff here. I'm thinking. Okay, you guys, that was super fun. Thank you all for everything, and I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday evening. See you later. Bye.